Today on the DML News Podcast, Donald J. Trump, Ukraine, Pete Rose, the border, AOC, Howard Lutnick, Elon Musk. So many names to discuss, so many things to discuss. We're going to do that here today on this beautiful Monday, and it's going to be all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son Denny. On the controls is my son Ryan. It's a Monday, and we are here again, once again, so proudly to come to you, inspired by all that's reported on 47 Report. That's 47report.com, 47report.com. You go there and you put your email address in. The next day, you become the smartest person in the room. You will not only get the 47 Report in your inbox before 7 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week, but then by 5 p.m. Eastern Time, you're going to get the DML Report coming in. So 47 Report gives you everything you need to know about the Trump administration, what they're doing, and what the resistance is trying to do to get in the front of and getting stoppage to making America great again. But Trump is going to win that battle. And the more that you know and the more that you share, more people will know what's going on in that battle. And that's why more people will support President Trump, J.D. Vance, and the entire MAGA movement. So go to 47report.com. If you have not gone there already, you are really missing out. I'm not kidding. You're missing out. Same thing with DML Report. Somehow, some way over the last couple of days, DML Report is starting to become just as popular, and some days even more popular than 47 Report. So you get a 2-for-1 deal, and it's a beautiful thing. If you sign up and tomorrow morning you do not see an email from Mr. Lynch, then you know that the slimeball liberals over at Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, AOL, wherever it is that you're getting your email from, we know all the high-tech losers, they are trying to silence us and silence you. So go into spam, pull us back over into the inbox, and tell those losers that you want to have the truth. And the truth will be yours. 47report.com. There's a guy, you may have heard of him before. He's now dead. But his name is Pete Rose. Pete Rose is arguably one of, if not the greatest baseball hitter to ever live. And I say that because Pete Rose has more base hits than anybody else who has ever played the game of baseball. Think about how many great names there have been. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Willie Mays, Bobby Bonds, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez. The list is long of how many baseball players there are who are great. But Pete Rose is at the top of the list. Now, I can tell you as an athlete, I have played baseball, football, hockey, football, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, you name it. I've done every single sport. Boxing. The single hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball. 60 feet away from you is a guy who is going to throw a ball 90, 95, 98, 100 miles an hour at you. You don't know where it's going to go. No guarantee. It could hit you in the head, knock you on the ground. It could break away from you. It could tail inside on you. It could be low. It could be high. It could be off speed. So many different things. You have a nanosecond to make the perfect hand-eye coordination come together using a small little device called a bat, not very thick, maybe 2 inches thick, and hit this thing coming at you like a missile. But not only do you have to hit it, but you have to hit it well. And then you've got to hustle like nothing you've ever seen before to be sure that you get that base hit. It's not easy. So imagine being the guy who has more hits than anybody else and you're not in the Hall of Fame. Cooperstown, New York. I've been there. Took my children there. You go through Cooperstown. You see all the greats who have ever played baseball. A couple of guys who aren't so great and just got in because either they had the right skin color or because they had the right attitude. And the way that you get into the Hall of Fame is that the sports writers, 5 years after you're retired, they vote on whether or not you deserve entry. 5 years you have to wait. If you're on the first ballot, And you get in on the first ballot, it's a double honor. Not only you in on the Hall of Fame, but you got in on the first ballot. If you don't get in that time, you're on the next ballot and the next ballot. And there's some guys, like my hero growing up, Greg Nettles of the New York Yankees, who never get in. Because the longer you're on a ballot, the less likely you're going to get in. So think about Pete Rose. All the years, and he couldn't get in. Now, why didn't he get in? For those of you who don't know, Pete Rose made a mistake. We all make mistakes. But Pete Rose made a big mistake. He bet on baseball. When he was a player, and after he was a player, he became a coach. The Cincinnati Reds, he was part of the big red machine. He bet. But here's the thing. His gambling problem never, ever steered him away from betting for his team. Every bet that he ever made was for his team to win, which says right on the surface that although maybe his addiction, because gambling is an addiction, just like alcohol is addiction, just like drugs is an addiction, gambling is an addiction. His addiction, which Major League Baseball never tried to help him out with, his addiction caused him to bet on teams, but never, ever did he bet against, which means that never, ever did he not try to catch a fly ball. Never, ever did he not try to hustle to first base to make a base hit. Never, ever did he not try to get to second base to make it into a double. Never, ever, as a coach, did he put in a lesser player or pull out somebody who was having a great game in order to win his bet. He always bet for his team. Now, I can tell you without doubt that there are players in Major League Baseball, Mickey Mantle is one of them, who notoriously were raging alcoholics, who probably womanized to the level that you would be like, oh my God, that's disgusting. How many people did he sleep with? They've been drunk when they're playing the game. They've been hungover. They have been less than representative of what a Major League Baseball player should be like, especially when you're talking about how little kids look up to baseball players. There have been baseball players who are in the Hall of Fame who have done drugs, cocaine, marijuana, you name it. Their addiction didn't keep him out, but Pete Rose's addiction kept him out. Pete Rose died. He died with the shame that Major League Baseball sprayed on him like spray paint that doesn't come off. They punished him even beyond his death. Why do I bring this up? What does this have to do with news and politics, DML? President Trump, just a few days ago, put out a statement about Pete Rose. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Major League Baseball didn't have the courage or decency to put the late, great Pete Rose, also known as Charlie Hustle, into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now he is dead. He will never experience the thrill of being selected, even though he was a far better player than most of those who made it in. And can only be named posthumously, meaning after his death. What a shame. Anyway, over the next few weeks, I will be signing a complete pardon of Pete Rose, who shouldn't have been gambling on baseball, but only bet on his team winning. He never betted against himself or the other team. He had or his own team. He never betted against himself or his team. He had the most hits by far in baseball history and won more games than anyone in sports history. Another important thing to think about Pete Rose. He won more games than anyone else in sports history. Baseball, which is dying all over the place, should get off its fat, lazy ass and elect Pete Rose, even though far too late, into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Why is this relevant? Because that right there explains to you who Donald J. Trump is. It explains to you that in one paragraph there, he calls out the mistake of Pete Rose, but says, who are we not to forgive this man? Jesus died on the cross and said, Father, Forgive them, for they not know what they do. They not know who I am. Jesus can forgive, but the scum at Major League Baseball can't forgive Pete Rose? Well, let me tell you what Pete Rose's first mistake was. He was born white. That's the first thing. And then in the same thing, Trump calls out Major League Baseball for what it is. And he doesn't hold and mince words. He calls them fat and lazy. Should get off their ass. And then he says, you're not going to do it? Well, I'm going to pardon everything. I'm going to do what's right. So in one huge ball of wax, Donald J. Trump identifies a man, his greatness, and his flaw. He says, yes, you're wrong. But ultimately, what you gave to the world and what you gave to the world is baseball is so much bigger than your one mistake. And who the hell are you, Major League Baseball, to do that? Donald J. Trump is not going to hold back. He's going to tell the truth. He's going to say what he feels, and he's going to feel it, and he's going to say it. That's what he just did with President Zelenskyy on Friday. Our timing wasn't so great on Friday. We did a great show on Friday for you. And then right after we were done, about 5 minutes later, Denny said, oh my goodness, the fireworks just went off while we were having our show. Zelenskyy, who I've told you on this show plenty of times, is a con man. He is a Napoleon. He has a Napoleon complex. The guy doesn't have the freaking decency to put on a suit and tie, or at least even a sports jacket and a collared shirt, to come to the most prestigious house in the world called the White House to meet with the most powerful man in the world, the President of the United States, does not have the dignity, the class, the respect to come in cleaned up and looking like a world leader instead of somebody who's out on a duck hunting trip. He's a G.I. Joe wannabe. He must think we're stupid. Oh boy, that's Zelenskyy. Look at him, man. He didn't even have enough time to change his clothes. He's been on the front lines fighting against the Russians. And then he comes over. At least he cleaned his hands and his face. He's still dressed up in those fatigues. What a dipshit. I'm sorry for the profanity, but that's the only way I could describe him. A total dipshit. Do you think we're going to fall for that act? Then, not only does he disrespect Trump by appearing in that kind of way, but then he comes in and he's making all these crazy demands. And we're going to play a video here in 1 second from Secretary Lutwig, who's going to tell you, hey, man, this guy came in and he had all the wrong things to say. He started off on the wrong way to begin with. In fact, Ryan, cue up that clip. The guy comes in, makes all these demands about what he wants, when he's going to get it, and you name it. And if you don't give it to me, well, I'm not signing your Earth Minerals deal. Play Lutwig. Let's get him going, and then I'll fill in.
So we were 40 minutes before the cameras came in and 45 minutes before the meltdown. And the fact was Zelenskyy never stopped asking for, I will give no concessions. They've got to leave my land. I want reparations of $300 billion. And I want the United States to give me security guarantees while they're at war with Russia. And that's why the president called it World War III. You're gambling with World War III. We're not going to give you security guarantees while you're at war with Russia. It's just ridiculous. His requests were ridiculous. They were not reasonable. The president let it go for a while, he was there to make peace. Our president is there to make peace. As he said, end the death. And Zelenskyy was not there to make peace. He was there to strike some sort of make-believe bargain that he had in his mind. And eventually that just ran its course. And Donald Trump said, I can't take this nonsense anymore, and made it crystal clear he's the peacemaker. And if Zelensky's not interested in peace, then he should go home and think about it.
And so there you go. In the same sort of way that Trump is handling things with Pete Rose, not holding anything back and saying for what it is. What you saw on Friday was Donald J. Trump showing everybody in the world, here's the transparency you need to see. Here's the little runt that's been coming in and making demands of the United States of America and won't even do it in a business suit. I ain't taking this crap anymore. You're not coming into my house, treating me rudely, abusing the American people, abusing the generosity that we've given you, and you're going to come in here and make demands? Listen to me, you little guy. You're lucky I don't put you on the moon. Donald J. Trump promised us we're not going to be doing this Ukraine thing anymore. We're going to end this war. Maybe not as easy as he sold it, but he's doing his part. And what we've had for decades and decades and decades in this country, we have had a bunch of weak, feeble leaders who play nice to everybody and try to be politically correct and smile when they're standing next to somebody who treats them like garbage. Not Donald J. Trump, not since Reagan, when Reagan told Gorbachev, tear down this wall, have we seen somebody with the level of balls, guts, and fortitude as Donald J. Trump. He's getting all kinds of crap from the left and the media, as you would expect. He's getting pushback from people, world leaders all over the world, that you disrespected President Zelenskyy. He didn't disrespect anybody. Zelenskyy disrespected the president from the moment he walked out of the car and looked like he was ready to go play in some freaking rugby game. He disrespected you, he disrespected me, and that's got to come to an end. What President Trump did on Friday is what we elected him to do. And if you don't like it on the left, if you don't like it in the media, there's an option for you. If you are that in love with President Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian people, pack your freaking bags and go live in Ukraine. It's that simple. Get on the front lines and do your part in fighting Vladimir Putin. But do not expect the American people who want to have peace and who want to just live their lives and who want to have their money going towards problems that are in the United States. Do not expect us to support you. Adios, baby. You don't like it? Don't let the door hit you in the ass. And so in the same way that Pete Rose should be pardoned and Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, Zelenskyy should be over in Europe getting his neighbors to defend him instead of having us having to do everything for them. Those days are over. Trump's bringing it to an end. And all I have to say is amen. Trump is betting on his own team. And there's nothing ever wrong with such a thing to do. What is your take, Dennis, on both Pete Rose and what took place with Zelenskyy, and then give us what's happening with Zelenskyy? And as you reported it, NATO and the European nations are all getting together now because they're in a freaking panic over the U.S. bailing out.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Trump's doing with Pete Rose is fantastic. I mean, it's an injustice, honestly. Like you actually pointed out fantastically. If it was Darryl Strawberry that was in that situation, it would have been amended a long time ago. And yet it's very unfair. And I think this kind of shows, too, that Trump is actually all about, you know, forgiveness, redemption. He's clearly not a perfect person, but he's someone that he knows that, you know, if you're great and you've done wrong, but you've done more than the wrong itself, that you should be honored and you shouldn't be, you know, blacklisted for the rest of your life. With that said, he clearly does not tolerate people who visually and verbally completely show him disrespect. And, you know, they pointed out something fantastic during that whole little clash that happened Friday. Zelenskyy was actively opposing Trump's candidacy for president. I mean, appearing with Biden at campaign stops, that should be the biggest red flag of all time, a foreign leader, you know, getting politically active in that regard. So this is clearly a case of him being very pissy that there is a change of management at the U.S. Basically, a new manager came into the bank and said, oh, we're actually responsible here. We're going to hit pause before we give you anything else. And he's being a whiny baby about it. And I think, too, as you kind of see the reaction here, it is all about diplomacy and trying to make things work that are a little more difficult to make work than simply just coming together, having a 10-minute meeting and executing that. So for Zelenskyy to like just be there in that meeting and start calling the shots in that sort of capacity, I don't know what he was expecting there. But I think when you lose someone like Lindsey Graham in terms of having the warmongering support, I think it's a good indication that this relationship is over, at least in the part of what it used to be under Biden. And as you mentioned too, I mean, Trump is kind of sending the clear message here: we are done. And I know that has Europe in incredible panic. Keir Starmer from the UK is looking to get troops eventually on the ground in Ukraine to help defend them. So this is kind of a wake up moment for Europe to realize, okay, the money bags from America to keep this going are kind of coming to a stop here.
Yeah, I mean, well, the last thing that happened this morning, by the way, is President Macron from the country of France, the French fries over there, they're getting together with the radical UKs, and they're saying that they are going to form a plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine that involves a 1-month truce in the air, on the seas, and in energy infrastructures. And I think what's wound up happening is I think Macron, this is my speculation. Macron has been around long enough to realize who Trump is and who Trump isn't. All right. Some of these other dudes haven't met with him as many times. Some of them are all brand new. And I think he's going in there and he's saying, listen to me and listen to me clear. We don't want to get in a conflict with Russia. We can't lose the United States in NATO because none of you, if Vladimir Putin comes after France next, none of you, UK, Germany, whoever, are going to be able to protect us in the same way that the United States is going to protect us. So before we go getting real brass balls, before we go walking into the bar and start calling everybody names, we better make sure that we can take down the biggest guy in the room. And I tell you, I'm looking around, we can't take him down. So let's start to play this nicely. Let's not talk about sending troops in. What are you talking about, Ukraine? You're going to send troops in? You're going to send troops in to fight Vladimir? Are you kidding me? You're going to take us into the biggest world war. And the U.S. is going to come out of NATO. We're going to be on this by ourselves, and we can't win. We can't win because tied to Russia is China, and tied to China and Russia is Iran, and tied to those three nutbags are North Korea. We're going to get centered and circled, and we're going to get our asses kicked. Our country will freaking go into the oblivion. Let's step back a little bit. Okay. Yeah, Trump may be a little brash. He may be a little bit, with the ego. But at the end of the day, he's the biggest guy in the bar. And we're not going to take him down. We got people in the UK and France saying, wearing hats that say, make Britain great again. Make France great again. Make Germany great again. Let's try to make peace. Not because we don't want to see Ukraine fall into the abyss, but because we don't want to get our ass kicked next. And oh, by the way, in case you haven't figured this out, the United States of America consumes more products and services than anybody else around the world. And what this guy is going to do next, what Trump's going to do next, is say, oh, really? Oh, really? You're going to cut me off? Well, guess what? Now you ain't getting nothing. You ain't going to get nothing. You're done. And I think Macron knows that Trump isn't bluffing. And that's the part I love. Something else that we reported in the 47 report. Listen to this. I don't know what Trump's going to do because I've stopped trying to figure out what he's thinking. Norwegian fuel company Halbach announced it would stop supplying fuel to U.S. military forces and ships in Norway, citing dissatisfaction with new U.S. policies on Ukraine. The company condemned Trump's spat with Zelenskyy, saying that it was the biggest shit show ever presented live on live TV. And the backstabbing of Zelenskyy happened on the TV show. This is what they said. The Norwegian company is now urging other European coastal nations to boycott servicing U.S. vessels. That is like me walking up to Mike Tyson and calling him the N-word. I am going to get my face planted. You don't do that. You just don't do that. This company, I don't know how Trump's going to do it, but he's going to kick their balls in. Can you imagine other companies lining up? Yeah, we're going to cut off Trump. We're going to cut off the U.S. You are creating your own death.
Yeah, be- the claim too that it was, what was it? I'll read the quote: "The biggest shit show ever presented live on TV." Where were they for 4 years under Biden? At like every national televised event ever. Like, talk about like actual embarrassment. But no, that is more of a slap to the face of these European nations realizing that the party is over. Okay, so they're going to try to do the little tough guy talk of, okay, let's boycott. Well, they're trying to do like a call to arms on the boycott. I'm really curious how many other companies are going to follow this Norwegian one, or they're going to realize, okay, they could go suicide themselves on that front financially. We'll continue servicing U.S. vessels.
The other thing that you got to remember here is I go back to what I said a few minutes ago. These countries have all gotten used to Bill Clinton with his BS Arkansas drawl, telling them everything's going to be peachy keen. Then they had George W. Bush, freaking loser from Texas, right? Didn't know what time of day it was, even though the sun was right on top of his head, right? Same thing, talking nice to everybody, sends in, we're going into Iraq. We're going to get you, evildoers. And what did we get out of that? Then they got Barack Obama, who basically
The
gave
globalist.
gave the entire world everything it needed to try to bring the Americans down. And then Joe Biden, who basically would sell out his own country. They got so used to having that sort of stuff that when you get a guy coming in here who can basically just send a tweet and wreck you, here's something that Trump put out over the weekend. And he says it to Europe. We should spend less time worrying about Putin and more time worrying about migrant rape gangs, drug lords, murderers, and people from mental institutions entering our country so that we don't wind up like Europe. Yet he kicks their ass.
He's got such a great point, right? I mean, I've never been. I know you've only been to Scotland, but
I've been to the UK.
Oh, you've been to? Oh, okay. Well, you know what I mean. I mean, you've been, but it's only been that trip.
I've been to the UK and I've been to Scotland.
Europe, like our ancestry, our ties are all to Europe. It's not tied to China. It's not tied to India. I mean, our foundation comes from Europe. And, like I said, I've never been, but from what I've heard people show me with pictures and videos and what I've seen and read about, Europe is just so culturally immersive. The idea that these barely elected leaders, depending on which country we're talking about, are making these crazy, self-harmful, inflicting decisions of, okay, we have beautiful societies. Why don't we take thousands and hundreds of thousands of unvetted African migrants, throw them into London and Madrid and Venice, Italy, and see how that works out. Oh, and by the way, make our police force insanely weak with actually enforcing laws to protect our citizens. What do you get? I think there was actually another drive-through in a German marketplace this morning. Yep.
Yeah.
Stabbings, just attacks from rape gangs. I mean, it makes no sense. And we're no better, obviously, with our southern border. But here we are. We elected.
We are better now.
Well, yeah, we elected a president who is now fixing that up. Europe is long overdue for a fix-up. And the truth is, with the exception of a few leaders like the Italian prime minister and Hungary, you just don't see a lot of action from Macron or Starmer to want to fix their countries. If anything, they're taking actions to shut up their citizens who are actively asking, hey, can you fix this? Because we're dying out here and we're trying to just live our modest, honest lives, and you're doing everything but that.
Well, I mean, to your point, Hungary, the leader of Hungary winds up putting out a statement just this morning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was yesterday, late yesterday.
It was in the 47 report.
It's in the 47 report. I'm going to read it straight from 47 report, 47report.com. And by the way, if you're on Facebook right now, if you're on Rumble, if you're on Twitter and you're listening to this, hit the share button, the retweet button, or whatever it is. Let's get more people hearing the truth. 47report.com, you would have gotten this information. This is what he writes. European leaders decided in London today that they want to go on with the war instead of opting for peace. They decided that Ukraine must continue the war. This is bad, dangerous, and mistaken. Hungary remains on the side of peace. And so that's triggering things like France saying, well, we should probably rethink this. And at the end of the day, you gotta keep on remembering what I've said here when I use my analogies. If you are weak and feeble and you don't know how to fight, the last thing you do is walk into a bar with a bunch of Hell's Angels bikers and say, you guys are scumbags. You're going to walk out in pieces if you even do walk out. And I think that the Europeans are starting to recognize that this is not something they can win on a war front or even in an argument. You are not going to outdo Donald J. Trump. It is not going to happen. I am 55 years old, going to be 56 in August. And in my 56 years, I have never, ever, ever encountered a human being with the sort of resilience and brilliance, backbone, and spine. And I know that's both the same thing, but I look at it a little different because backbone is you're going to stand firm and spine is you're going to take chances going forward. Donald J. Trump is head and shoulders above anybody else. I don't know a close second to him. I don't know anybody else who's a close second to him. That man stood on a podium, had a bullet go past his ear, got down on the ground, stood up and said, fight, fight, fight. You want to screw with that guy? I don't want to screw with that guy. He's the guy in the bar that you don't go up to and say, F yourself. You just don't do it. Now, here's the crazy thing about Trump. This is where Trump is different again than anybody else. If Zelenskyy was to pick up the phone today and actually apologize, instead of going on Fox News and doubling down, instead of taking a photo op with all those freaking weak little feeble leaders in Europe and posting it on freaking X, Trump would turn around and say, okay, come on back. I'm going to have to kiss the ring, sign the freaking mineral deal. And oh, by the way, the mineral deal we were giving you the other day, we're going to put a little vig on top of that. Okay? The 50% of the minerals you're going to give me, now it's 65 because you got to pay for what you did. But I'm going to welcome you back. I'm not going to hold a grudge. That's the power of Trump. That is the power of Trump. I don't know if I'd be able to do that, Dennis. I don't know if Vladimir, I don't know if Zelenskyy came into my house, disrespected my wife, my children, my home, my neighbors, my country, that I would be able to call him the next day and say, all right, come on back. That's how big of a person Trump is.
It's tough. It's part of diplomacy. You know, I mean, I think it's one thing when you're dealing with some, radical leftist senators or Democrats or the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's because, it's subversive, but you're dealing with it on the home front. But when you have to deal with international leaders that obviously think a very different way, I mean, I can only imagine the intensity of a negotiation meeting with someone like Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a man that has seen and probably done everything, So I think to be the president of the United States, you got to be ready to sit down with a Putin, sit down with a Xi Jinping, sit down with anyone that could be from Europe that's going to try and give you, like Angela Merkel. Remember that infamous photo during Trump's term? He's got the arms folded and she's trying to be, the big lady intimidation, and you just don't back down to it. You gotta show these leaders that even though they're the leaders of their own country, we're the U.S. When it comes to the world, we're supposed to be the top dog.
Over my shoulder, I don't know if you can see it or not. Yeah, you can. You could see the movie poster for Rocky. Do you know why people love the movie Rocky? Not because it was a great fight movie. I mean, you could get a great fight movie anywhere. The thing about Rocky is that you can hit him as many times as you wanted to, and he was never going to stay down. He was going to keep on coming up. You were never going to beat him. You may win a round, but you were not going to win the bout. That's Donald J. Trump. You're never going to knock him down. So instead, you might as well figure out how to hold his hand and be his friend. Now, tomorrow night, Trump is going to get up and he's going to address the American people. It's sort of a State of a Union sort of style speech, but he's going to get up there and he said it on X, he said it on Truth Social. He is not holding anything back. This man learned so much from his first presidency, and that's why I say it all the time. There is no job in the world that will get you ready for the presidency. You can be the governor of California, Florida, New York, the three biggest states, Texas. You're going to get into the United States White House, and you're going to be like, oh my God, this is so much bigger than a state. I'm dealing with the entire world. President Trump is the only person in our lifetime who had on-the-job training to come back and say, I'm going to do it right this time. He's going to be on there tomorrow, And he is going to be talking about Zelenskyy. He's going to be talking about all the problems we've got in this country and how in 45 days, he has turned around and done more in 45 days than any other president has done in 8 years.
I mean, one of the things he'll definitely address is, I believe tomorrow, and we have a video related to it from Howard Lutnick, the tariffs kick back up for Mexico, Canada, and I believe China as well, because I know Trump is not fully happy with their efforts to prevent fentanyl trafficking.
Right. And let me just say something too. This is an important thing before Ryan plays that video. So Trump over the weekend announced something about the southern border. All right. Apprehensions. This is on the 47 report, 47report.com. If you haven't gone there yet for our daily newsletter, I don't know what you're waiting for. 47report.com. Join everybody in Washington, D.C. and everybody around the country who is reading this on a daily basis. Trump announced that the apprehensions at the border hit a record low in February. Okay. Trump reported that it was 8,326 apprehensions. Okay. Now keep in mind that when you had Joe Biden, the apprehensions in February of 2023 were 190,000. And the record that Biden served us was 301,000 in December of 2023. Now, before that, and how many times you heard me say on this show, when Trump first took office in 2016, 2017, in April of that year, he wound up having 15,000 apprehensions, and we were dancing on the tables. He now has cut that in half. 8,000 people. It's nothing. He's going to be reporting that. And I want to hear scumbags like AOC bitch about that. We'll get to her in a second. Play the Lutnick thing because, listen, here's the other thing too. Trump is coming down. Those tariffs tomorrow are hitting Canada, they're hitting Mexico, and they're hitting China because the scumbags in China are poisoning our people. Play the video.
Look, we care about two things, right? The March 4th is about the border, and both Mexico and Canada have done a reasonable job on the border. They're both working hard on the border. You know, we've had the lowest crossings ever under Donald Trump because of his ability to negotiate with Canada and Mexico. But the fentanyl continues to come into this country and continues to murder our people. And the ingredients are made in China. They're sent to Mexico and Canada, and then they come and attack our country. And that's got to end. So the president's been crystal clear on those 2 points. They have done a lot. So he's sort of thinking about right now how exactly he wants to play it with Mexico and Canada. And that is a fluid situation. There are going to be tariffs on Tuesday on Mexico and Canada. Exactly what they are, we're going to leave that for the president and his team to negotiate. And obviously, I'm talking to him all the time to discuss what that's going to be on Tuesday. But China's got to stop making these ingredients. Remember, in 2019, the Chinese told President Trump at that time that they would put the death penalty on anybody who made fentanyl. And today, they're giving the maximum subsidy they possibly can to the people making those ingredients. So the Chinese need to stop this murder of Americans. And Donald Trump is the only president who protects the American people.
So, you know, I'm going to bring something else up here, Dennis, that you just reminded me while we were just talking as that's playing. The Chinese are taking advantage of the United States in a way that has to stop, and Trump knows this. He knows it, and he's going to play it like a grand piano. Think about this for one moment. On 9/11, we had terrorists take down our buildings, and 3,000 Americans died. 3,000 Americans, it's a lot. But every single year, we have over 100,000 Americans being killed by fentanyl. And that is not something that Pfizer's pumping out. It's something that China is giving to the freaking Mexicans, and the cartels are wrapping it together and putting it into our country along with Canada. We should be declaring war on these scumbags. That's what Trump's doing. If right now, Iranian boats and troops, shock troops, were to come up in through the United States, surround the United States and kill 100,000 people, or if they were to light off a freaking nuke in a town, in a city that has 100,000 people, you can bet your ass tomorrow that every Democrat, all the media, everybody in the United States would say, we need to go to war with Iran, wipe them off the face of the earth. But yet we have this happening every single year, year after year after year, and you got these scumbags in Democrat DC freaking think tanks, all of them, saying about how it is that the stock market's going to go down by 1,000 points because it's tariffs. Who gives a shit about the stock market for going down for one day? Let's have it so this way we tell these scumbags around the world, your party is over. You are not going to kill the American people anymore. And if you think you're going to keep on killing the American people, I'm going to freaking grab your balls and squeeze them until your freaking face turns pink and you pass out. That's what he needs to do, and that's what he is doing. And how anybody would want to fight back against this, I just don't understand. How anybody would want to help illegal aliens, I don't understand.
Well, that's what pisses me off about some of these rhino Republicans. I mean, we talked about this in the 47 report in a previous edition, but Oklahoma's governor, right? I mean, Oklahoma, I think, is the reddest state in the country in terms of county. They always vote red. And then you got the governor of Oklahoma trying to vouch to Trump or start this coalition of trying to bring illegal aliens back into the working economy. And it's insane that someone that would be the governor of a red state like that would even vouch of something so ridiculous.
Listen, and I'll go past it. When you're somebody like that in Oklahoma, and I hear you talking about that, Mr. Governor, you remind me of AOC. We've got a clip right here of AOC on one of these freaking, what is it? One of the far left.
NPR.
On NPR, talking about how it is that, and she's dancing around the subject, how she's helping illegal aliens, calling them her constituents, how she's helping them avoid ICE. She should be in freaking jail. She's getting in front of federal investigations. You can't do that in the United States of America. Play the clip.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
You know what? There's only one thing that makes me more sick than AOC, okay? Because she's talking about her constituents. Let's Ryan, get this video queued up. Let's call a spade a spade. This woman is never out there, just like Ilhan Omar is never out there fighting for the American people. Let's never forget what she did with Amazon. Remember, Amazon was going to move locations to New York to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. And what did she do? She got in the way of that. And Amazon said, I'm not dealing with this. So all people who could have had a really nice paying job with a company they knew weren't going to go anywhere, she pushes it away. But if it was for an illegal alien, she would have done anything she can and trying to claim that those people are constituents. She is helping the illegal aliens stay in her area at the detriment of the U.S. citizen who lives in her district who isn't getting a job because it's going to an illegal alien. Now, on top of that, I know, illegal aliens don't all look like her. They're not all Latinos. They're not all Latinas. We've got so many people coming into this country, both legally and illegally, that a lot of times we forget about the legal side of things. Over the weekend, I wrote an op-ed. Freaking people, I got the reaction I got from people. It's just, DML, I didn't even know this exists. Birthing hotels. Birthing hotels. Oh, what's a birthing hotel? The United States of America right now is getting inundated by tens of thousands of little born babies who aren't just being dropped over the border by somebody from El Salvador or Mexico or Brazil, but by the Chinese and by the Russians. And here's how it works. There are companies in the United States who work with the Russian government and the Chinese government. That alone is a red flag. And what happens is, I'll use the Chinese. The Chinese government pick out middle class and upper class Chinese women who are pregnant, 4 months, 5 months in. They give them money, $20,000, $80,000, $100,000. They pay these companies here in the United States. They fly them over, mostly into the Chinese into California, the Russians into Florida, but it's all over the place. We got people coming in from Iran. We got people coming from all over the place, coming into this country on tourist visas. They get tourist visas. And we've got scumbags working in immigration who are rubber stamping this, taking money under the table. These people come over pregnant. They're told to wear baggy clothes. They're told to fly in to areas where there's not going to be a lot of scrutiny, a lot of vacation destinations. So this way they just rubber stamp approved, because tourism is everything, right? You go in there, then you go to the company. They put you in a house for your next couple of months while you're getting ready to give your birth. They get you to the hospital. You're paying your hospital bill with no doubts because you don't want to have any problems. And this is all funded by the Russian government and by the CCP. And then you have a baby. And now your baby sticks around with you for an extra month. So this way you end up getting everything you need. You're getting the passport, you're getting the social security number, you're getting all your citizenship papers, everything you need. You've got it all set. Then they fly you back home, where your child will now be raised by the communist government of China or by Vladimir Putin, and your kid is going to be indoctrinated with the America sucks. But great thing is, you've got dual citizenship, and at any point in time, that person wants to go back, that kid goes back, they're 18, 19 years old, they could go back to the United States because they've got citizenship, and now they can petition for all their family members to come on over because that's how chain migration works. And I bet you right now, as much as I have a blue shirt on today, I bet you within the next 10 to 30 years, we are going to see a candidate, either a Russian or a Chinese person or somebody from one of these Middle Eastern freaking harboring terrorist nations that is going to run for major office, be it in the governorship or even the president of the United States. And we've got to worry with all this hacking going on and America sleeping at the wheel without Donald J. Trump in place, that we're going to wind up having a fraudulent election. And what is going to happen? Either a state is going to have a governor or the United States is going to have a president that is going to wind up being one of the people that were in these birthing hotels. And we're going to be screwed because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to play a video right now for you that's coming out of Baghdad. I want you to see this video, what they're doing in Baghdad. It's showing prayers. Play it, Ryan.
أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. Okay. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
That is the first time I have ever lied to you on this show. That was not Baghdad. That is New York City over the weekend, Dennis.
They should change it to Baghdad. I just watching that is so disheartening. I mean, that is not our country there, and I bet you a lot of those people who are there are probably not properly vetted. Something tells me they were probably flying under the radar during the Biden administration.
Dennis, when people say that Donald J. Trump was the last chance to save this nation, they were not exaggerating. I know sometimes people, get a little over the top and a little sensationalized with some of the stuff they're saying. I've sat here and said to you, America has fallen off the cliff. We're going to fall into the abyss. Donald J. Trump is doing all he possibly can to stop the bleeding. But I don't know how it is that you fix that. I don't know how it is that you put the sand back into the bottle, put the genie back into the bottle. I don't understand how it is that you fix that. The only way that you can curb it is by stopping the flow of immigration into this country, both legal and illegal, because we are not vetting people coming into this country. We talked about last week how Trump said that he wants to give $5 million gold cards to people of high wealth. So this way we could highly vet them and see them come in. And look, what I'd like to see a curb on all immigration for a little while so we can catch our breath. It's not going to happen. The American people never asked for 1.2, 1.3 million people to come into this country. We never asked for chain migration, that the way that you get into this country, the prerequisite is who it is that you were born by, because all of a sudden we're going to take in Mohammed, and Mohammed's going to say, well, I've got 50 different relatives back at home. Well, what can they do? They can't do anything. They know how to pray on a prayer rug. I could bring them into Manhattan. They could pray on a prayer rug. Is that good? Yeah, bring them on in. We have to stop that. We have to curb that. We're never going to fix that, what I just showed you, but we can curb it. And anybody who wants to have that as their United States of America, you bring me a Democrat right now in front of me and you pin them against that freaking that monitor screen right now and you play that video again. And if that person says, I think that's healthy for New York, let me tell you something. It will absolutely defend what I have said on this show almost every day or at least every week since I've started it. Liberalism is an absolute mental disorder.
It is. I mean, it sometimes comes down with immigration just altogether. It comes down to the simplest of sanity. There's a reason they're coming to Manhattan and we are not going to Baghdad. I mean, we are the beacon of freedom, of hope, of free speech, of prosperity. I mean, we built cities across a giant continent. I mean, we're the best of the best. So when we take these people in, and don't get me wrong, I mean, there's people we've taken in, and we were just talking about one who's going to be the Undersecretary of the Navy, who was a Vietnamese migrant, but he's American. He loves America. He pledges his allegiance to America. You watch a video like that, you know they're not pledging allegiance to us. And in many of these cases, they're condemning us. They're wishing our death. So Trump really needs to fix birthright citizenship because it has been routinely abused. But we need to switch the atmosphere here where, yeah, you know, the gold card could be a good opportunity to pay off the debt, but we got to make sure who we're bringing in, like you said, are not only vetted, but they have the intention of wanting to be here in America for the right reasons, not because they see it as this international bank they could come over, take some money, bring it back to their home country, and live la-di-da-di-da. It's just not what I want.
100%. Look, Trump's going to speak tomorrow night. Everybody's got to listen to it. Everybody's going to listen to it because you cannot not listen to Trump anymore. He is the guy. And if you thought that this show today was packed with great information, I want to give you a sense for something. If I had a 1-foot ruler, I just gave you 1 inch of what is in the 47 report today. You got 11 more inches, and I don't have the time to give you the rest of the 11 inches. Every single day, Donald J. Trump, J.D. Vance, and this administration is doing all it possibly can to stop this country from being destroyed. And at the same time, as we described here and showed you today, the left is doing all the crazy possible things they can do to make a resistance to what Trump is trying to do in terms of make America great again. I urge you, it is for free. It costs me more money to put out this newsletter than it does for me to put on this podcast. We do it out of the love we have for this country. The way that you can help us is twofold. A, if you're on Facebook right now, hit the share button. B, if you're on a computer or on your phone, go to 47report.com, put in your email address. I don't sell it. I don't share it. I keep it to myself. We send you an email every single day in a newsletter format. It is unbelievably great. We get 98.2% of the people who get our newsletter give us a 5-star rating. It is unheard of. And if you do that, you help us grow and you share it and you tell everybody. That is what I am asking you to do, please, because I can't. I mean, I wanted to tell you about how Hegseth is sending 3,000 troops down to the U.S. border. I don't have enough time to do it. I can just sit here and keep on all day long, just keep on telling you about how much stuff we got going on in the resistance. You would get this. It's a 5-minute, 10-minute read every single day, and you will always open it because you know there's always going to be true reporting and something new is coming that they're not going to tell you about in the mainstream media. I just read a Facebook comment that after we just played that thing in Manhattan, they said, why didn't I see that on the nightly news? Because they don't want to show you. They don't want you to know what's really happening out there, both good and bad. And that's why the alternative media that we offer is a lifesaver in terms of you being in the know or you being out of the loop. And that's really what it comes down to. Dennis, last 30 seconds, words to you. But Ashley, do we still have the news coupon on? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, look, I agree. And, I would even venture as the last statement here to anyone who's got the friends of a bleeding heart liberal and someone who's on the blue team, if the tables were turned around, like if we had Kamala Harris and 8 years of her put this country in the shitter, but something like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Russia and China were all thriving, ask yourself if you were the one who needed to get to that country and immigrate over there, if they would accept you behind their walls. And the truth is they wouldn't. So why in the world should we be accepting them? That would be my 2 cents there.
You are totally correct. I just had somebody on Facebook here. It says, Ann Quinn says, what's the site again? 47report.com. Ryan, go wide so this way they can see it on the screen. 47report.com. That's a 47report.com. You go in there, you put your email address in, you will be blown away. In fact, if you miss the email for some crazy reason, at 47report.com, you just scroll down and all the archives are there. So if you want to see today what I'm talking about, Ann, you want to go see it, go to 47report.com, put your email address, hit submit, and then scroll down and hit today. You'll see today's.
I was going to say today's, but everyone should check out your Sunday write-up about the birthing. I mean, the details yesterday it's crazy. It's not more talked about.
It's astonishing. Nobody's talking about it. It's the biggest scam in America.
Yes.
And all of them there. You could read yesterday's too. You'll be blown away. So please, 47report.com. Also, if you are a DML CBD user, I can't believe the amount of people came back in and asked me, please, can you extend it? We were giving a 50% off coupon because I know people are still hurting. That's the other thing Trump's getting hell for. The economy's not back yet. It's 45 days. You want to build a skyscraper in 45 days? Joe Biden took inflation. He took this country, he threw it into hell. And you want Trump to put it back up into heaven? Give him some time. People are still hurting. They're still hurting. So we put dmlcbd.com. I'm giving you a 50% off coupon at checkout. You use the coupon code NEWS, NEWS. You get 50% off everything that's there. I don't care what you buy. We're going to give you 50% off. You could buy 1,000 pieces. I'm going to give you 50% off because I'm trying to help you. If you're not a DML CBD user and you're saying, hey, what can I do, DML, to sort of help in any kind of way? dmlcbd.com/mug. Go there and buy one of these Life After 50s. This is my weekend podcast. In fact, if you didn't listen, if you're interested in all things DML, Denny interviewed me over the weekend. So the Life After 50 podcast is phenomenal. People love it. I put the politics away, I put the news away, and I take somebody who's 50 years old, who you've never met before, but has the most interesting story. We interview him for an hour, hour and a half. We've done everything from surviving cancer to holistic medicine to bringing God into schools to how to make money in real estate.
The immigrant from Ghana.
We just had an immigrant from Ghana who's talking about the fatherless crisis in this country and all the different things. Denny, because people asked, interviewed me over the weekend. So episode 9 of Life After 50, which you can get from seeing in the newsletter, will give you a link right to it. And you can see it. For 2.5 hours, we talked. I shared everything. I told behind the scenes, what happens at Fox News, stuff that I went through with Megyn Kelly, what goes on at Newsmax, my relation to Trump in 2016. The stuff that I talk about in this, I've already had my friends come back and say, oh my God, DML, I've known you for freaking 20 years. I didn't know. Why didn't you ever tell me this stuff? Then he got it out of me. You could get it. Go 47report.com and go at the bottom. It says Life After 50. Boom, you hit the link and you'll be able to see. In fact, it's only audio. We have only the audio. So make sure you hit the Spotify or the Apple Podcast audio and you'll be able to listen to it. Just while I'm sitting here, I text message. And a guy turned around and said to me, he says, oh my God, I can't believe what it is that you put on this podcast. It's phenomenal. So go and take a look. That's it for us. So dmlcbd.com/mug for the mug if you want to get it. dmlcbd.com code news for 50% off. And of course, go listen to the podcast in addition to signing up for 47 Report. I know that's a lot of things to do, but as my wife says, I gave you a grocery list. Did you come home with everything? And I always say, I did, honey, and a little extra. I give her a kiss on the cheek, and I thank God for having her and my beautiful children and my daughter off to the side. We are a family-based business. Unless your name is Lynch, you don't work with us. So you want to support the family? You want to help support what we're doing? Take the laundry list I just gave you and at least get one of the things. Don't come home empty with nothing. That's it for us. I'm losing my voice. Until the next time, may God bless you, your family, J.D. Vance, Donald J. Trump, Pete Rose, and the United States of America.
Today's Team D-Mail blessing goes out to Barbara Dimuchowski.
All right, Babs, run with it.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the D-Mail News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team D-Mail.